Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the English podcast with Dr. Maqsood Azeemi, which was held on November 13th, 2025. Now, before we jump into what is a truly incredible discussion, we do have to pause for a moment. There's an urgent safety message regarding the severe smog crisis in Pakistan, particularly in Lahore. Please, we're urging everyone to take extreme precautions. Only make essential trips outside, and if you do, mandatory mask usage is key. And please increase your consumption of water and soup. May Allah protect us all. Amen.
Amen. And that is such a vital message right now. And now, for our deep dive today, Dr. Sahib's discussion was just so comprehensive, wasn't it? It really spanned the whole spiritual journey.
It really did.
From defining focus to, achieving that inner detachment and even the mechanics of divine light. So our mission here is to really analyze his wisdom with the depth it deserves and to make sure every single insight about the self and spirituality gets fully unpacked for you.
Absolutely. We're going to try and get to the core of these concepts. And he started with a word that for many can seem a bit contradictory, junoon. Because, in the Quranic context, being majnoon is often associated with someone who isn't in their right mind. Yet, Dr. Sahib's own spiritual guide, Khawaja Maqsood Azeemi, famously declared, "May my junoon become your junoon." So, how do we even begin to reconcile that?
That's the perfect place to start. And it all comes down to linguistics and context. Dr. Sahib really emphasized that the Arabic root of majnoon signifies someone lacking consciousness, someone driven by, let's say, instability.
Okay.
But in the Urdu or Persian context, the meaning of junoon completely transforms. It stops being about instability, and instead it starts to describe this intense, singular, almost obsessive focus.
Like in the story of Layla and Majnun. That's a perfect example, isn't it? His name, Majnun, it wasn't a comment on his sanity.
Not at all.
It was about his absolute total concentration on Layla. And Dr. Sahib explained that this is the kind of spiritual jinn we're talking about. An intense zeal. What was the word he used? Yaksui, right. Single-mindedness aimed at spreading the spiritual guy's message.
Exactly. And that's the key. This focused zeal, it's not a loss of senses. If anything, it's an elevation beyond the normal conscious senses. It's the difference between being, distracted by every little worldly thought versus possessing the spiritual intensity to just cut through all of that.
And that's the positive driving force Khawaja Maqsood Azeemi wanted to transfer.
Precisely.
That distinction really sets the stage for the next topic, which is the internal world, the levels of the nafs, or the self. Dr. Sahib walked us through that whole continuum.
The three states.
Right. Nafs-e-Amara, Nafs-e-Lawama, and the ultimate goal, Nafs-e-Mutma'innah. The first one, Nafs-e-Amara, seems pretty straightforward. It's the self that just follows its own whims.
It issues its own commands.
Exactly. It gets caught in what Dr. Sahib called the world cycles.
But what's really fascinating is how he redefined that middle state, the Nafs-e-Lawama. Most people just think of it as the reproaching self. The part of you that makes you feel guilty.
Sure, your conscience nagging at you.
But Dr. Sahib clarified it's so much more than guilt. He said it's the inner conscience, the nur-e-batin, the inner light. He explicitly defined it as the voice of the divine. It's the mechanism Allah uses to guide an individual.
Wow, that really deepens the whole idea of conscience. So if that inner light is our guide, what does it take to finally reach the third stage?
Yeah.
Nafs-e-Mutma'innah, the satisfied self.
Well, he provided a very, very stringent criterion for that. The self has to achieve satisfaction with its own performance, but, and this is the crucial part, that satisfaction can't be based on your personal desires, your marzian.
Or what other people think.
Or what other people think, exactly. It has to align strictly with the predetermined framework, the will of Allah, the Quranic do's and don'ts. Only when your performance lines up with God's standards, only then is the self truly satisfied.
I thought his explanation of the wordplay here was just brilliant. The way he showed how being razia, being content and accepting of everything Allah does, how that naturally leads to you becoming marzia.
The state where Allah is content with you, it's a reciprocal relationship.
It is.
And then came that incredible warning, the wordplay, that if you constantly follow Mary Marzi, my will or my desire, it inevitably leads to Mara Marz's.
My illness, my disease.
It's such a profound spiritual diagnosis. Unchecked personal will is literally the source of spiritual sickness.
So if true satisfaction requires aligning with divine will, that brings us to his next point, which is about how we define our own emotions. He gave this core definition of happiness and sorrow that just simplifies everything.
It's so powerful and practical. He said they are nothing more than the act of assigning meaning to a piece of information, an itla in your mind.
The stock market example he used was perfect for this.
It was. The crash itself is it's a neutral piece of information. It just is. But if one person assigns it the meaning of total loss, what do they feel?
Sorrow, despair.
Right. But if another person sees the exact same event and assigns it the meaning of a perfect opportunity to buy low, they feel
Happiness, excitement.
exactly. The external reality didn't change at all, only the meaning they assigned to it.
So then, if our emotions are just the meanings we assign, the spiritual goal has to be what? To stop assigning meaning altogether, to move toward neutrality, detachment. That state of istina.
Precisely. And this is where we often misunderstand what spiritual thoughtlessness really means. It doesn't mean you stop acting or you become passive.
Right.
It means you stop the worry, the fikr. It allows you to become truly unconcerned, as he put it, with the outcome. It frees up your mind to focus purely on the action itself.
He used two really beautiful analogies for this. He said the spiritual journey is like a return to childhood, to a kind of spiritual infancy. The child is naturally thoughtless.
There's no kitchery, as he said, no noise or worry constantly cooking in their mind. They just eat, play, run.
And that connects to the origin of the word istina, which you were saying comes from.
It comes from Gina, which means richness or melody. A true melody only happens when all the instruments play in perfect synchronization. Any lack of sync just creates noise, what he called kop.
So detachment, istina, is what brings back that internal synchronization. It quiets the mind's internal noise. That's it. Okay, so if the goal is that internal synchronization, let's talk about the mechanics of how that change happens, specifically the spiritual connection. Dr. Sahib went into detail about what happens when a murid, a disciple, enters the spiritual guide's magnetic field, the halqa.
Yes, the circle. He said that when the disciple enters that halqa, their negative qualities are sort of cleaned up. And these latif roshniyan, these subtle lights, they begin to accumulate.
And this connects directly to the spiritual physics described by Qalam Babaliya, right, who was the guide of Khawaja Maqsood Azeemi.
Exactly. The lineage is so important there. And that framework of spiritual physics is incredibly detailed. Dr. Sahib explained that light flows from the nuta-izat, the point of self, to the mind, and then down to the body.
And that light carries the ulum eladunya, the inspired knowledge.
The inner knowledge we're all seeking. But, and this is key, there's a counterflow. Light also flows back from the body, and it carries ulamidunya, or worldly knowledge.
So that's where the problem starts.
That's where the problem starts. The spiritual issue arises when our focus, our inamak, is mostly on that external worldly knowledge. When that happens, a kind of spiritual decay sets in. He called it tafun. The inner light just starts to dim.
So what's the antidote to that decay? How do you get to lockify that subtle purity?
It comes down to inner focus. Dr. Sahib quoted Qalandar Babaliya's essential instruction. Get absorbed within yourself.
And that means what, practically?
It requires the discipline of identifying the origin of every single thought that comes into your mind. You have to analyze it. Is this from the Loa Mahfuz? Is it related to my divine purpose?
Or is it just the nafs and its raw desire?
Exactly. Or is it a reaction to the environment? Or is it a whisper, a shaitani waswasa, just a bad feeling? This process of identification is the act of internal absorption.
And that absorption is what allows for the ultimate goal inside the halqa, which is the transfer of the mindset, the tarzi fikr. The murid wants to adopt the murad's way of thinking.
Yes, the one who intends seeks the mindset of the desired one. And Dr. Sahib explained the student does this through tasawwuri roshni, conceptual lights. They consciously, actively strive to adopt their guide's perspective. And by doing that, their attention shifts from external decay to internal inspiration.
Okay, let's shift focus just a bit to two really critical definitions that Dr. Sahib clarified. The first one is the spiritual meaning of miskeen. We usually just think of it as someone who is poor.
Right, materially poor.
Right.
But he offered a much, much deeper interpretation. He defined miskeen as someone afflicted by jamud, stagnation.
They're just static.
They're static. They've chosen to remain where they are, content to just sit in their current state, and so they receive nothing because they're not striving forward. Their spiritual poverty is a result of their own immobility.
That really flips the narrative, doesn't it? From being about misfortune to being about personal choice.
It does.
And what about the other one? The spiritual meaning of Qalam, the pen. He pointed out that when the Quran says God taught man by the pen, ilm insana bil qalam, The Prophet himself didn't use a material pen.
Which raises that vital question. If it's not a physical pen, then what on earth is Qalam?
So what is it?
Dr. Saeed defines it as the waju, attention, or
Yeah.
focusing. If you just visualize the act of paying attention, it has to converge to a point, doesn't it? Like the nib of a pen or light passing through a lens. That point of convergence, that intense concentration of attention is the real pen of learning.
And he used that to distinguish between how Adam learned and how insan, mankind, has to learn now.
Right. Adam received that knowledge directly, the ilm al-azma, and the ability to contemplate through the divine breath. It was an initial gift.
But insan, which literally means the forgetful.
Or we forgot that initial connection, so we have to consciously apply the Qalam. We have to pay that intense, focused attention to relearn and reconnect. For us, learning is the application of concentration.
This constant need for focused attention brings us right to the end, to what he said was the ultimate prerequisite for any of this to work: adab.
And again, he defined adab as something far more internal than just, outward respect.
It's not just about manners.
Not at all. It is narmi, which is softness, gudaz, which is tenderness, and fundamentally it is acceptance. It's the disposition that allows you to accommodate the teacher's impression, their lesson.
And the analogy he used for the phrase badada banasib was just perfect. He said nasib means nazpona, to be incorporated or implanted.
So if you are soft and tender, if you have adab, you are like wax. The impression of the coin, the guide's teaching, is clearly and permanently implanted. You become banasib.
But if you're biadab, without that softness,
You're like hard stone. No matter how much pressure the guide applies, the impression just won't take. You remain banasib. That spiritual softness is the non-negotiable prerequisite for receiving anything.
And he stressed that this wasn't some secondary teaching. Khawaja Maqsood Azeemi wrote Ba'ada Banasib, Bi'ada Banasib as the very first lesson of the Silsila-e-Azemiya.
It's the foundational article.
It's the absolute foundation.
And connects everything, doesn't it? If
Yeah.
you accept that principle of softness, of adab, you make room for iman, for faith, which is at its core the willingness to accept and obey. That initial softness is the spiritual key that unlocks everything else.
What a phenomenal and just, totally comprehensive deep dive this was. We've gone all the way from the intensity of spiritual focus to the self-alignment with divine will, the physics of inner light, and landed on the absolute necessity of softness.
And if we can take just one single reflection away from all of this, let it be this. That profound link between physical softness, that narmi, and spiritual receptivity, nasib. I just encourage you to consider, in your daily life, how often do you choose the stone of stubbornness or fixed ideas over the wax of acceptance and tenderness? Because that choice, right there, determines whether you will be banasib implanted with wisdom or binasib in your spiritual advancement.
Thank you very much to all the listeners for giving your time. This discussion will surely prove beneficial for you. Kindly forward this video to your friends who keep asking about spirituality and Silsila-e-Azemiya. Your forwarding will help YouTube automatically reach more people with this video. Subscribe if you haven't already, and like. Lots of prayers for you too. Allah Hafiz to all.